Hello and welcome to Mechanical Mashup. It's been a while, I know that, but we've got a few more episodes coming up here and hopefully you'll really enjoy things that are coming up. But today we're going to show you how to make a light that turns on automatically when you open up your cooler lid. So a buddy of mine, Josh Gross, came to me last year and said, you know, it'd be really cool if we had a cooler that when you opened up the lid, the light would come on, because at nighttime you can't really see what's in the cooler and that can be pretty annoying. And I agreed with him and we come up with a few ideas as far as putting switches in. But in the end, it was a kind of a pain because it would only work for, say, one type of cooler, or the switch wouldn't work necessarily once it got wet. So I ended up thinking about this and I went to Newark, or the Element 14 website, and there are these tilt switches. They're a little bearing inside this little tiny switch. And once you tilt that past, say, 10 degrees, it'll either turn it off or on. And you can also get these dollar store puck lights for absolutely nothing. So I'm going to show you how to integrate these two things so that as the door for the cooler lifts up, the light comes on, and as it goes down, it goes off, just like your fridge light would come on and off when you open it up. So let's get started here. And move this soldering iron just off to the side here. First we need to open up the puck light. I guess one thing we could do real quick here too is, what all do you need? You need a knife, a little utility knife, a dollar store puck light, these little tiny tilt switches or tilt sensors that you can get at Newark, pair of pliers, a pair of wire cutters, and a Sharpie. Oh, and of course your soldering iron. Soldering irons are always very handy. So, and solder. Alright, now that we've gotten this, what we're going to do is we're just going to take the back off here. You're going to have to also get some AAA batteries to go with this. And one thing that I did notice earlier is that this white piece does not come off very easily. So what you do is you kind of just work it around until you can screw it backwards using the back lid for the batteries and pull this off. And what we're going to do here is I'm going to spread this out into the pieces as they come off. So you've got the white piece that goes over top, the little white lens. You've got this little plastic piece here. And then what you'll notice inside here is a little switch that is the turn on and off switch, which is great. A couple of these and the resistor. We're going to have the light so you can turn it off and on quite easily. The same way you'd normally do it. So you can turn it off during the day if you really want to. But the key thing here is that these two wires here are the battery wires. And what we need to do is we need to take one of these little tilt sensors. And we're going to place it in here on a bit of an angle. We'll end up sort of twisting it around a little bit a little later, but essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in here, I'm going to cut one of these wires off. I'm going to put this guy in here right about there, just solder it onto there. Then I take this other wire and we're going to solder it here. So how do we go about doing this? So we need to break one of these connectors. It really doesn't matter which one, as long as you're going to be just taking one of them. So I'm going to cut it right off at the tiny little spot right here, right on this piece. And the reason why is that when I solder to this, it gives me a little structure that I can actually hook to. And being very careful not to pull all the electronics out. You can use your utility knife or your teeth or whatever you like, just to strip the end off of this little wire here. What I like to do with little tiny wires is very carefully take the utility knife and just score it on one little edge and grab your fingers, and then you can pop off that little bit of the sheathing for the wire. So we've got all this sort of set up here, and the next quick thing that we're going to do here is I'm going to put this sort of tilt sensor somewhere where it's not going to be in the way. So what you'll want to do is throw this guy on here, and you can take a quick look and think that, like, right up in this area I can probably put that tilt switch without hurting anything, or back into there. I'm thinking so I can get that right up in there. Will this reach in there fairly nicely? So it doesn't quite reach this little tilt sensor, based off of that little piece there, doesn't really reach in there. So I'm just going to kind of tilt them off to the side here. Regardless, let's turn on our soldering station. And for what it's worth, this is, got this at Newark as well. And this soldering station costs like 70 bucks Canadian. Super cheap. I've really liked it so far. It's done really good. So we've preheated this up to the temperature we need. Gonna tin the end of the soldering tip. Granted, this isn't a soldering lesson, but I'm gonna do that. Oh, and so your wife doesn't completely lose it on you, is make sure that you have something that you can work on the table so that you don't mess everything up. Now, and put little solder burn marks or soldering iron marks in your wife's table or your table too, but you're just gonna tin the end of that wire so it's easier to solder. And then what I'm gonna do here, I'm gonna solder this down to that little tab there. So I'm not sure if you can hear that or not. I'm gonna put this up near the mic. You can hear that little bearing inside tilting back and forth on the inside. So what we're gonna want is when it is in the upright position, and we're gonna have to position this the right way. When it's in the upright position, say this way, it's gonna be set to on, and then when it tilts down like this, we want it to come off. So what I did in my last one is I took this guy, and just so that I have enough room to get the right tilt, is I put him in and tucked him in kind of down in there, and that way I can set up the tilt. You know, I can vary the tilt a little bit as I need to. Then what we're going to do is the last little bit here, solder this little wire that I just stripped off to the other end of this tilt switch. Getting these guys to just touch and do everything right is a bit of a pain in the butt, but I'm sure if I had like a helping hand or something it would be a little easier. But what I'm going to do here is just a quick touch. Now, one thing that we got to keep in mind is that we don't want this to short out. We don't want this wire to touch that, this little wire here, and this wire to contact each other. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring him all the way up and over this way. Okay, so we got the batteries here. I'm going to stick them in the right way, and you do this before you close everything up because it is a pain to have to open it up and close it all the time. So you'll notice that it kind of flickers and stuff when it's right there. So what this is telling me is that way is essentially up. Granted, when you open up one of these coolers, that it'll probably flicker a little bit. That is a little bearing in there. And yes, for all your electronic geeks out there, absolutely we could put a debounce circuit in this, but we're spending like $5 on a little light that might get wrecked, so we're not going to put that much effort into it. So what we want is when this light is up at this angle here to be on, so we're going to kind of make sure that this tilt sensor is sitting at a good angle for that. So once it's up like this, the tilt sensor is on, and we're going to set it up so that when we tilt it down, it comes off. And the best way to do that is just to make sure that when you have it flat like this, that this guy is tilted down so that the bearing goes all the way to the other end. One thing that we do want to know is, and the reason why we have the Sharpie, is that when we have this tilted up like this, we want it to be like, if it tilted up like there, or if it was orientated that way, it would not turn on. Same all the way around. It'll start to turn on and probably hold nicely right around there. So now that we know which way is up, I'm going to face it towards myself and I'm going to lay it back down. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this little silver thing on here, I'm going to place it back where it needs to be, and then I'm just going to draw a line at the very top, or just make a mark on here so that you know which way is supposed to be up. Now we can put the glass back on, put this lid back on, and you can also turn it off and on just like you normally would with a regular puck light. But now what we have here is a little light that we can stick onto something, be it the cooler lid. Here's the arrow for going up, and if we have it set up like this and that's sitting up, the lights will come on, and if it's down, not sure if you can see that, probably not. Once it turns to about here, it turns off. So now we have this here. Let's open up our cooler lid. Let's take the backing off the adhesive back for this puck light. just like so. And place it in the middle somewhere where it won't get wet. That'll probably do right about here. We'll turn it on just to make sure it turns on. So we got it, once it's up like this, it turns on, and when it comes down, it'll turn off. And I will give you a demonstration of this working here just shortly. So I'd like to give a shout out to my buddy Josh Gross for showing us how to do this. And if I'm obliterating your name, and it should be Gross or Gross, or it starts with a G, it's spelled Gross. Name's Gross, dude. Sucks to be you. Anyhow, thank you for the great idea. I'm glad we came up with a solution for this, and hopefully everybody else out there enjoys it. So now that the weather's super nice and it's the peak of summer, go out camping, take your cooler with you, and know that you're going to grab the right drink when you reach into it.